Chad Rubin here with Skubana, speaking to you live from Shop Talk 2017. Today, I'm joined with Parag from Webgility. Parag, hello.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Thanks for joining us. So today we are going to talk about Amazon and all the fees that actually sellers are not aware of. Because Amazon focuses on what you make, Webgility helps you focus on what you keep. So can you just give me your sort of 20-second pitch on what Webgility is, and then we'll start really getting into some tactical stuff that's going to drive your business and help you be aware of some of the things that are happening on Seller Central that you may not be aware of.
That's right, yeah. So Webgility provides a software platform for Amazon sellers and multi-channel sellers to basically bring the data from all of their systems into one central dashboard and be able to make financial sense of that data, right? So you talked about Amazon fees. Really what's hidden inside those fees are all of the costs that sellers are bearing without even realizing. So most sellers will focus on the top line revenue that they're generating across Amazon, and they'll sort of shove it under the rug in terms of the total fees that they had. But the more they dive into that fees, the more they can learn about what's really working, what's not working, what categories are selling better than others, and where their profit margins might be better, so that they can tweak and optimize their business, right? Because ultimately, you're giving a large part of your revenues to Amazon for the listing process, but you want to find a way to continue to fine-tune that.
Can we dive into the exact numbers or fees that you're extrapolating so that sellers can actually get a better sense of how to drive more profitability out of their business?
Sure. So if you, most sellers that we work with, they're used to seeing kind of a bi-weekly Amazon settlement report. And that settlement report is just incredibly hard to parse, because what it does is it is a running ledger of every transaction that's happened in the last 2 weeks in your Amazon account, all the way from the fees you paid to list the item. If you're an FBA seller, it's the FBA listing fee, the restocking fee. In fact, new fees appear on that settlement report at a very periodic peg, and it's really hard to discern that. So what we do is we will break down every one of those fees and we present it in our dashboard right inside the order. So you look at an order in the Webgility dashboard, you'll be able to see exactly the revenue you had, the Amazon fees associated with it, the FBA fees associated with it, the cost associated with that transaction, and that gives you a much better picture of really what you ended up spending to get that revenue, rather than just be able to look at, top level expense on the monthly basis for your Amazon sale.
And does Webgility actually reconcile the return fee? There's like a return commission fee on Amazon? Absolutely. Yes. Okay. Yes. How about the long-term storage, short-term storage fees?
Yes, if you look at the list of all of the fees in Amazon, one of the most fascinating things about the fees is, as you know, as an FBA seller, you could end up with a transaction where you process a complete return, but you've actually now lost money on that transaction because you had to pay restocking fees. So it ends up actually being a net cost to the business than an actual profit. And so when we get transactions like that, again, because of our expertise on the accounting side, we're able to consolidate those transactions at a line item level, and we can record it into the right ledger entries inside your QuickBooks. So instead of having your bookkeeper kind of parse that information, we've already applied best-in-class understanding of how that data should be handled and recording it into your accounting system.
Sweet. Okay, so I'm a new Webgility client. I have Webgility and Skubana hooked up together right in our app store. So the things that I like about Webgility that I wasn't paying attention to is when I was reconciling my books with my bookkeeper, I was taking the number that was actually deposited onto my bank statement.
That's right.
Right? And so that's your net revenue that Amazon pays you out. So why is that important? It's important because if I'm actually going to sell my business today, right, that revenue number is a net revenue number, not a gross revenue number.
That's right. Absolutely right. In fact, this is the beauty and I guess the challenge of financial data, because if you look at how most retailers run their business, you've obviously got the payroll side, right? So if we take that aside for a second, just in terms of running your e-commerce business, if you're only looking at your sales revenue and looking at the net deposit, which is what typically a bookkeeper will do, is they'll put the net deposit into your accounting because it's financially complete. That's the money you got. But the devil is in the detail, right? If you break down contextually that revenue to how much fees were incurred, you can actually track the top line revenue as your sales and take out all of your fees as expenses, that is much more accurate tracking financially. But to your point, if you're ever positioning to sell your business or even just understand what really financially makes sense for you, you can learn how to dial it up. In fact, talk about a simple thing like customer acquisition costs, right? Most businesses are looking at their dollar spend of how much the cost per lead was, but really to get the customer acquisition cost and compare it with the customer's lifetime value, if you're only looking at the net deposit in your bank account, you've done yourself a disservice because that customer brought in a lot more revenue than the net deposit.
Well, you'd hope so.
Yeah, you'd hope so. Absolutely. As long as you haven't killed yourself in all the fees that you're buried under with marketplaces.
Got it. That's actually one of the things that's on Skubana is we have actually a lifetime value of the customer. You can see your repeat customers. You can also see an FBA seller or your FBA storefront, how frequently people come back to your storefront.
That's right.
Let's just say you're doing $7 million in revenue, net revenue on Amazon. What do you typically see as the gross revenue?
Well, I mean, if you just sort of look at Amazon's categories, right, you have a range from maybe 5-7% all the way to 20+%, but on average, you're looking at 10 to 15%, right? So you could take that 7 million, you're probably right up there with 8.5 million in gross revenues. Now you'll see that gross revenue if you log into your Amazon account, right? At least they tell you what your total sales were. But again, if you're not accounting for that correctly, you're sort of not painting the real story.
Got it.
Yeah.
Parag, thank you very much, sir.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.